So hello and welcome to another episode of Conflict on Camera. And we are joined by my friend Alina from History Hack and Auschwitz podcast to discuss a photo taken in Warsaw in August 1944. And it's the photo that's going to be on your screen now. Welcome to the show, Alina. And this story, of course, is a personal one to you because your grandfather was involved in the Warsaw Uprising. And you have several photos that your grandfather is in and your grandfather's friends were in, but we're going to focus on this particular photo today. So what is going on in that photo? And my first reaction when I first see that is you see a German helmet and you see the black and white, but the yellow minefield triangle there. But that's a red herring, isn't it? Because a German helmet is a German helmet, but it's a Pole wearing it, and it is a Pole wearing that yellow device there. So explain who's in it and what's going on in the photo for us, please, Alina.
Okay, so let's start with the helmet first. I think one thing at a time. Yep. Start with the helmet first. So obviously during the Warsaw Uprising, the partisans, insurgents, let's use the word insurgents from this case, even though I personally hate that word. We'll go with that word today. So the insurgents would take equipment, for example, Zośka, Battalion Zośka, I think it was on the 5th of August, stormed a warehouse where they had all the, the Panzer. I'm not very good with military
Raps, the Raps, yeah.
So they basically took that and they used it for their own benefit. Same with the German helmets. But the difference is, I want you to tell me, what is the difference with that German helmet? Woody, look at it. Tell me. Okay. What is wrong with that helmet is there's an eagle on the front.
Yeah. I can see it.
That's not a German eagle. It's a Polish eagle. White Polish eagle. Halina Paszkowska, who, if anybody listens to any of the podcasts and I end up talking about the Warsaw Uprising, I always talk about her because she's one of my heroes of this time, which hopefully at one stage we'll be able to talk about her because she's just so awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
She actually took part in painting on the helmets eagles. It was a way to identify Poles. My grandfather actually had a white helmet and it was Russian. To this day, I have no idea where he got it from. But it is a story that I'll have to work out where that did happen. So there you go. Looting, taking uniforms and all sorts and making them Polish. Moving on, you mentioned the Meinen sort of flag. I made this mistake and actually thought that they had this before the Warsaw Uprising. Well, apparently they didn't. This is something that came up literally a couple of days after the Warsaw Uprising began. And it became an identifying insignia for Rafałki, which were part of third group Konrad in Powiśle. And they basically just took them and they wrote an R on the bottom, and the R represents the platoon Rafałki after their platoon leader Rafał Olbromski, who actually, as we're talking about him, he's actually the gentleman in the photograph that you can see the insignia on. And Woody, what is he holding?
He is holding a PIAT bomb by the look of it.
You are very correct there.
And then up under his left arm is the PIAT itself, which now brings all the weapons people in because everyone likes a bit of PIAT. Hence the bring up the PIAT quote that is oft used by members of another online podcast that we have ways of making you talk team. But PIATs in Warsaw, it's not necessarily your first kind of thought of the weapon that would be used there. So how the hell did these Polish resistance guys get their hands on a PIAT?
First of all, I am going to tell you, and I do apologize to everybody who loves the PIAT. I personally hate the PIAT, and we're going to come down to why. It's a very personal thing that happens, which we're going to talk about this. So Warsaw is uprising, so the Allies decide to help. They start dropping packages, and well, unfortunately, not all of them get into the hands of the insurgents. And in one of these, they're like very big sort of capsules. They're quite large. They'd be packed with medical supplies and weapons and all various different things to be able to help the insurgents. And of course, the PIAT. And this specific capsule ended up dropping in Powiśle around the middle of August, 1944. Yes, and this specific PIAT does some incredible damage, specifically to Rafał. So we can talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, for the purpose of those watching, I guess the use of a PIAT in somewhere like that urban environment is not just against enemy armor, but it's also for what I would call mouse holing, putting holes through walls to move from building to building. So that's why they would need PIATs. But you've already hinted at it. So what is the what happened to that particular weapon and what was so devastating about it in terms of why you hate it so much.
So this specific weapon was used against German armor, especially German armor that was down by the river, because Powiśle is located right by the river between the old town and the midtown. And on the 24th of August, 1944, our platoon leader, Rafał, who we see on the photograph holding the exact same PIAT, is up in the teachers' building. Funnily enough, is a good tidbit that I also recently found out, just really, really randomly. The building that he was firing out of, first of all, was the headquarters of the 3rd Group Konrad on Smolikowskiego Street. Secondly, post-war, that building was used for the trial of Rudolf Höss, the first commandant of Auschwitz.
Wow.
It's really, really high, many, many floors. He was up towards the top and he was firing the PIAT out of the window down towards the German armor that was located there. The first one was it missed but quite far. The second one didn't get far either. The third one ricocheted, exploded, and took him out with him. Unfortunately. And I spoke to the youngest member of this platoon, who was he was only 13 at the time. He said he was the one that gave him the actual armament bit, and he's felt guilty for most of his life, really. So,
well, tragic. But so what do you think happened? Do you think he went in to fire it bounced back inside the building? Is that what you think happened?
It hit basically the frame of the window, and when it exploded, it took him out. He was alive for a little bit, not long, enough for them to take him down and for certain members to say goodbye. He even got a chance to say goodbye to his fiancée as well.
Wow. But this is where the noble idea of dropping weapons to people who need them is, of course, a good one. But when these weapons are used by the British Army or the Canadian Army, they are used by men who've had weeks and weeks to train on them. They know what they're doing with them. They practice loading them, they practice handling them. It all gets built up so that by the time you actually theoretically engage enemy armor, you're practiced and good with it. In this environment, with this arriving hours almost before the uprising, and there's not firing ranges, there's not where you can go and practice it. It's going to be a case of just giving it to someone and saying, there you are, have a go with it. So of course, well, we can understand why things don't always work perfectly.
I'm interrupting you here, Woody. Only reason why this platoon was one of the best trained platoons in the whole of the uprising. I'm not saying with heavy armament, but they were incredibly well trained with weapons. So ranging from pistols to machine guns to, what are they called? God, hand grenades, that's the word I was looking for. These weapons were they had no chance to use these. Where they actually trained was a bombed out factory where they learned to shoot. This is where my grandfather learned to shoot. And what they did was they had a sort of like a hall upstairs where people would trade food and lots of things were happening on purpose. So in the basement, that's where they would train. And they had a diesel engine that would power up parts of the factory. And they'd run the diesel engine so it would mask the sounds of the bullets and sounds of the shots.
Wow. And we ought to mention as well, there's a second photo that with the example we have is a colorized version that taken at the same time of the same group of people. And you can see in the colorized version, we can see again the white eagle on the German helmet. We can see the PIAT. We can see the 3 cardboard tubes that the PIAT bombs came in. So is there anything particular detail about that photo that's different to the black and white one?
Yes, actually looking at the helmet, so you see Rafał is in the photo on the right hand side in the black and white version. He's not actually on the one in the left. The gentleman you see standing on your left hand side, I don't know if you can see the detail on his helmet. It says an R.
Yeah.
That is also means that they were part of the Rafałki group. So they would not just have the insignia on their arm, they would also have an R written on their helmet to distinguish them. So if I ever look at footage of the Warsaw Uprising, and it has happened a couple of times before where I kind of, you run this film and you're thinking, oh, you're looking at the details. You go, oh my God, look, I see an R on a helmet. It's my grandfather's platoon.
Wow. And I mean, you said that the insignia is there for identification, but I guess it's also there for a little bit of esprit de corps as well, isn't it? It's part about being in the team, part of being in in the club of the men and the women that you can trust and you've bonded with and you've spent time with. So it serves, I guess, a couple of purposes.
This platoon was active through the occupation as well. So they would also find, distribute weapons throughout the whole of Warsaw, preparing for the Warsaw Uprising. They ended up liquidating, or let's say executing, let's use a proper terminology here, they executed a couple of people that were cooperating with the Gestapo. And I think I've written about it in one of my blogs. It's a really interesting story. It's something that Hollywood would air, and you're kind of thinking, wow, how lucky are these guys, you know, pulling off this execution in the middle of Warsaw and escaping from it.
We must bring this to an end fairly soon, but of the people in the back, going back to black and white photo there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 people in there. Do we know how many of those lived through the uprising?
Konrad does, the gentleman, the second on the black and white one, the second on the left-hand side. That is the gentleman that ran the third group, Konrad. And he was again, the word escaped my mind. I could say the word in Polish, not that anybody's going to understand. Dowództwa, the leader, the commander, that's the word.
Commander, yeah.
It's all right, Woody, don't worry, you can leave all my my mistakes in this.
It just makes you more endearing, I think. It adds a certain something to it.
So yes, Konrad does survive. Yeah, Rafał's the only one out of the platoon. The rest, they're having a look at this pier. It's something that's dropped, and it's an exciting piece of equipment that they could use. Yeah,
and the one thing we haven't asked is who took the photo and why.
It's one of a few. I'm not quite sure who took this one, but there's Jerzy Tomaszewski, who was a photojournalist. But these guys would go from platoon to battalion to area, and they would document the Warsaw Uprising and what was happening.
So thank you very much for joining us, Alina, to explain that, because it is a very well documented battle, but it's the backstories behind these photos that makes the difference. Who are the people? What were they doing? And what happened to them? And it's tragic that PIAT was to end up killing the very guy who's examining it in that photo. I'm laughing in an ironic way, not in a tragic way. It's these little details that photos are snapshots in time, and you get this little backstory from it. And I find it very interesting. So thank you very much for joining us, Alina. It was charming to have you on to talk about that photo, and I'm sure we'll have you again back on Conflict on Camera to talk about another photo. You're welcome anytime you want.
Amazing. There we've got so many photographs we can go through. Take your pick.
So thank you for watching, everybody. There's links below, again, about how to find out more about some of these subjects. And I hope to see you all again on World War II TV very soon. And don't forget to click subscribe, check out our Patreon page, check out the links to other shows, and get updates about what we're doing next. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all again. Thank you.